Uptide fishing in challenging conditions is sometimes the only way certain venues can be fished, and in that respect they don't come any tougher than the River Mersey, particularly when there's a good lick of tide running through. This isn't the boat's engine running, it's turbulence around the prop. How could you possibly expect to keep a bait in the feeding zone using drop-down leads in conditions such as this? Uptide fishing was primarily devised to get results in situations where boat noise and scare area in shallow water push fish away from the drop-down zone around the boat. Less often considered is the fact that if your line is even slightly angled out across the tide, then you can also be certain that your lead is holding bottom. The key ingredient then to successful uptide fishing is having a lead you can rely on to deliver that result, and so far as short boat grip leads go, nothing beats the Gemini range. To understand why, you first need to understand the mechanics of lead grip. Take the standard breakaway lead. A fabulous design for long-range shore fishing in shallow water where tension on the line makes the lead lie flat and take hold. But the same lead in deeper water and at shorter range from a boat giving the line a much steeper angle will see it sitting on the bottom unable to grip. Give a lead nose wires, an extended tail and a plastic nose extension to move its point of balance back in favour of lying flat, and it can't sit up. But what if, as can be the case, the normal short boat maximum size of 8 ounces simply isn't heavy enough? You could of course load up your reel with low diameter braid to help reduce tidal drag on the line. You could also consider upping the size of your lead, though that would undoubtedly require finding a suitable mould and pouring your own. All the components used in making a Gemini lead are also available for use with a home making kit, so that at least is part of the self-making problem solved. You might also want to give your 8-ounce lead extra grip by adding in more wires. Alternatively, if the situation calls for it, why not go the whole hog and combine extra grip with extra weight and make your own super grip leads? I use 2 versions, both based on a 12-ounce lead from an adjusting mould with the lead poured into the open end where the plunger should go. Both have 4 grip wires in contact with the seabed at any one time. This is the rough ground breakaway version using all standard Gemini components and 2 Gemini heads. For less harsh terrain I use a fixed wire version which spreads its grip over a much wider area. First job is to block up the side pouring hole in a manner that is not likely to work free. Next, take 8 6-inch lengths of stainless steel wire and bend the ends over so they can't be pulled out of the lead. With the tail wire already in position at the bottom, place the 8 bent ends of wire into the open top, pour in the lead and allow to cool naturally. Never use water to cool the mould, as residues can cause the next pour of lead to spit dangerously. When properly cooled, open the mould and prepare to bend the grip wires. Separate the wires now into 2 groups of 4 and bend each group at right angles in opposing directions. And finally, bend the ends over to allow them to grip. All that remains now is to spread the wires out like a fan. Having 2 sets of grips pointing in opposite directions means that it doesn't matter which way up the lead settles out. Either way, it will still have 4 grip wires instead of a traditional 2 in contact with the seabed. When using super grips, always fish them from a tubey boom to prevent the trace becoming caught up in the wires. Having your lead planted firmly on the bottom in a ferocious run of tide is not the same as having your bait on the bottom. At such times, fish tend to be reluctant to venture up into the flow to check out a bait waving about above their heads.
Better one, isn't it?
Oh, aye.
Even on a flowing trace, because of the surface area and irregular shape, baits can be lifted clear of the bottom by the sheer force of the tide. To help combat this, and to assist with setting the hook, Jensen II skipper Tony Parry has devised this very short and very successful Pennel boat rig.
Now, just going to show you a variation on a Pennel rig. You start with 2 lengths of line, you come about a foot up the line, you do a double overhand knot in the line, like that. Pull that tight. You've got the 2 lengths of line there now. Take any one length, snip about 3 inches off that, so you end up with one shorter than the other. Take a bead and put both lengths of line through the bead. Slide that up there out of the way. And take a hook. Tie that one onto there. This knot's called a uni knot. Snip the line off there and tie a hook on the other length line. Again, pull that tight. Snip that off. We then cut one of these pieces short. You need a total length of about 2 foot on your trace. So snip that off there. And swivel on the end. Pull that tight. Snip it short. That's my variation of a Pennel rig. Reason for tying it like that is if you were to use a Pennel rig where you wrap the line round like that, you can't position this hook where you need it. If you have a Pennel rig with a piece of tubing on, so you can adjust it like that, it can be a bit loose, and if a fish takes the top hook, when it pulls on the top hook it can slide down. Both hooks end up together like that and you end up ripping the piece of tube and your Pennel rig's knackered. So the way I do it is like that. Both hooks are then fixed in a position, so it doesn't matter which hook you get the fish on, they're both solid, you can't move. Now, another part to this rig is the way I tie the boom up. It's a short length of line running through a sliding boom with a lead link on one end and a swivel on the other. Clip the lead link onto the trace. Now the idea of the short boom is when you've got your lead on there and it's anchored into the seabed, the fish comes along, takes the bait and it stops there. It should automatically hook the fish. It saves all your slack line running through your boom. It also saves your boom running up your slack line and ending up 30 or 40 feet from the fish. You can only move a few inches. Right, the reason why we fish this type of method here with the clip on, clip off, if you need to disconnect your trace for any reason, it's just on and off. The other thing is, you're using a big bait on these, and it takes time baiting up, so you can already have one pre-baited. When you finish with this one, you unclip it, put your pre-baited one on, and you're back in the water, and then it gives you time to sort out your second one.